Good evening and welcome to this week's Black Mental Health is Black Host Health. I'm your host, Bronwyn, the Black Couch Therapist. And today we have a topic that someone today said, whoa, that's deep. It is, but it's real. We're going to be talking about suicide among children and teens. It's a real thing. But you know what we always do? We take a few deep breaths to clear our head, to just help us regroup and rewind. And before this topic, we need some deep breaths. So I'll invite my guests and all of you to breathe in with me. I'm going to count to four very slowly. And so I'll say breathe in. I'll count to four very slowly. I'll say breathe out. And I'll count very slowly. As slow as I'm counting is as slow as I want you to breathe. So let's get started. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out. 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. One more. In, 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. How was that for you, Krystal?
Ooh, that was very relaxing.
Awesome, because we're going to need to be relaxed to talk about this topic tonight. So, as I always do, I ask my guests to tell us who you are and tell us something cool about yourself, Dr. Krystal Lofton.
All righty. So let me just say I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. Again, my name is Dr. Krystal K. Lofton. I go by K. Most of my friends and family, they call me Dr. K or K. I'm a licensed counselor and I'm a mental health educator with a doctorate in counseling psychology. So I've spent the past 15 years working at the intersection of both education and mental health, working in those fields. I'm very passionate about making, mental wellness more accessible to people that are in underserved communities. So whether it be through counseling, teaching, or even advocacy, my mission is to create safe and empowering spaces for people to help them grow and heal. So that's my background. Let's see, something cool about me is I am a Reiki master.
Are you?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, I enjoy energy healing. I practice it on myself daily. I do it in the mornings. I do it before I go to bed. I really like to ground out anything negative that's within my body. I don't like to carry it with me. So that's one of the things that I think is pretty cool.
That is awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, tonight we are here to talk about suicide in teens and adults. It is not an upbeat topic, but it is definitely a topic that's real. We don't think of, young people committing suicide, but it's very common. And it's very common, unfortunately, in African American youth. We're focusing on teens, but children, yes, children are also committing suicide in our community. And one of the things no, that's not real. It is. So, Krystal, what are some statistics? What do the stats say about suicide in the African American community among teens?
So suicide rates among Black teens, they're definitely rising. Um, when we look at the increase over time, we're seeing that suicide among Black adolescents between the ages of 10 and 17 rose 144%. Okay, very high.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's when we look at those rates rising faster than ever in this particular group, we have to bring more awareness because even with, let's say, a slight decline in 2022, there was across all races, Black teens remain at a disproportionate rate. Okay. And so this topic is something that we really have to talk more about. And when I work with families, there's a lot of hesitancy around like, having this type of conversation, and we have to feel more comfortable and at ease with having this type of conversation. So
Mhm.
that's some stats around this particular issue that we have.
What about males versus females? What do you know about that? Are they the same? Are there difference in how they do it, or the stats, or just any gender differences around suicide?
So when it comes to the girls, they're more likely to experience suicidal thoughts and attempts. We're
Mhm.
seeing that, in our young females where um, they're engaging in this type of behavior. But for the boys, they're more likely to die by suicide because they use more lethal means. They're accessing firearms, things of that nature,
Mhm.
um, to where it's more final when they engage in using those type of means versus like the girls, they may engage in pill use or things of that nature. Um, and so when we look at it, that's a major difference. So the suicide rates amongst teen girls, it has increased annually by about 13% from 2007 to 2015. That's the latest stat I have on the year.
Mhm.
And then with boys, the suicide rate has increased by about 7% annually during that same period of time. So the suicide rates have doubled for the girls, 2.4 um, per 100,000 in 2007 to 5.1 per 100,000 in 2015. And that's according to the CDC. We have that information. And then when we look at our LGBTQ youth or teens, there's a higher risk, especially among transgender youth. And so, due to, let's say, identity related stress or
Mhm.
rejection, there's a higher number there. About 21% of Black, transgender, non binary, or questioning people reported suicide attempts in the past year.
And those are really staggering statistics, And one of the things I want to point out too, that when it comes to males and females, even in the adult population, males typically choose more lethal means, and it just trickles down. And women, more pills, men, more guns. And it's just, you look at the stats. And
Mhm.
teens can find access to guns or more lethal means. When you have interviewed people, in the past who were not successful, the gun didn't go off or things like that. They chose guns because it was quick and to the point. That was the thought process. Whereas, if you're going to take pills, it takes too long.
Mhm.
And women are noted to say they didn't want the pill was going to be, well, they wanted it because it was slower. And if you took a gun, that what if you miss and you feel the pain? So just the thought, a process based on gender can be very different. You mentioned the LGBTQ community because you look at things we're seeing in the news today that you're bombarded with everything that's bad about you, and it makes it easy to see why someone would want to go down that road. And I want to talk about reasons. So what are some reasons? We talked about just the LGBT community. um what are some reasons, before I say anything, what are some reasons that you know of where people have the thought, whether they went through and tried it or not?
Well, there can be a number of different reasons why they may consider suicide. And so they could be sitting in a space where they're truly feeling hopeless or helpless, or they may even feel like they're a burden on their family. And so, sitting in that space, they may feel like, I don't want this burden to continue for my loved ones, because they may feel like the family is carrying a lot of stress, managing everything else. So it would be easier if they were no longer within that system. It could be trauma if they've experienced traumatic events. It could be a series of traumatic events. It can be in a abusive situation or experiencing ongoing neglect, bullying. They can also experience considering suicide if they're in that space and they don't know how to ask for help, or there's a sense of shame around what they're going through and they don't know how to really communicate that. So they can sit and suffer in silence because of what they're going through. So this could be some of the reasons. Also, maybe they're struggling with their identity, or there's a buildup of stress where it's not just one event that's happening,
Mhm.
it's multiple things going on at once. And the overwhelming sense of all of this going on is causing them to feel like they're trapped. And how can I get out of this trap? How can I get out of this cycle that seems to never end? Suicide. That's the thought process.
I heard suicide once described as a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Meaning whatever you're going through, it'll change for the better, change for the worse, but it's a permanent solution because if you are successful and you complete the suicide, it's permanent. I can think of recently some young girls I talked to who literally attempted after breaking up with a boy. And when people hear that, they think, oh, that's just so silly. I can't believe anybody would do that. But like you were saying, these are people whose coping skills were not adequate to handle a disappointment. And we can, you will find adults being judgmental about, really, you're going to kill yourself behind some boy? Girl, you better get up. Well,
Mhm.
that mentality also makes it harder for people to want to reach out. If I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling hopeless, helpless. And like you said, it's usually, so many other things going on that this was the one person I felt heard me, loved me, and they rejected me. I can't do it.
Well, you can think about it in this way. When you're like me and you both can have a breakup, and I can recover quickly. You may not. Some people may say, oh, it takes them years to move on and date again. For other people, it's like, I can't move on. I can't get past it.
Mhm.
I love this person so much. So, trauma looks different for everyone. We can experience similar events, but it doesn't mean we're going to respond in the same way or have the
Mhm.
same reaction to that event. And so people have to be less judgmental and open, so that people can actually open up about what they're truly experiencing in that situation. And so that's one of the things. And we have to, when it comes to parents and them hearing it, they have to avoid the urge to just try to fix, you know,
Yes.
and be present. You really have to be present so that the person can really open up and share.
You transition right to where I want to go in and talking about parents. Parents find it difficult to hear that your child is suicidal. I've seen some interesting reactions from overly cautious and then they hover and don't let them do anything to, oh, please get over it. I mean, literally, parents saying, get over it. That was stupid. That was selfish of you to do that. What are some reactions you've heard parents say or do, positive or negative?
Well, I feel like when parents hear this, it hits them in the gut. Yes, it's a hard pill to swallow, like they say. It's very difficult to know that your loved one is sitting in this space, and parents want to try to just cut it off. Like,
Mm-hmm.
stop it, don't do it, don't think about it. You need to get over it, move on past this. This is just too much. That's the kind of comments they may say. This is
Mm-hmm.
too much. Or even when it starts off with like self-harm, like the kid, maybe they're engaging in self-harm. You better not do this or I'll take away your phone. you know if you do this, you're going to end up in a mental institution, you're going to end up in the crazy house, how they say it. And so those kind of comments and reactions really aren't beneficial, because when you cut these things off or you take these things away, they start thinking about other options,
Mm-hmm.
because the problem hasn't been solved. They haven't gotten help. They need to replace those negative coping skills, the negative thoughts, the negative behaviors, the risky behaviors, those signs that let you know that there's an indicator that something may be wrong. They have to replace that with new coping skills, positive ones. And it can be, segueing them into getting additional help. So parents have to create a calm and open space, and not panic. You don't want to go into panic mode, because this can be harmful too. You want to really create an environment where the kid wants to share and will continue to share, and just create that space. I think that's important.
And I think, in addition to that, I totally agree. Parents also have to not be in a self-blaming mode.
Mm.
You know, sometimes parents feel guilty. How did I miss this? Or, oh, what did I do wrong? And they may go so far that then the focus is on them. But parents often can feel guilty,
No.
or, I did this. How did I let this happen? How did I not see it? What's going on? So, to that end, um, what are some things parents should look for? Um, yeah, just what are some things, if you have a teen or even a younger child at home, what are some things you should look for?
So when it comes to this, you want to look at different types of warning signs. They're writing about it. Maybe they're talking about it online. If you have access to their social accounts, that's a big thing where you can check for signs and mood swings, just changes. They can have, let's say, a loss of interest in the things that they used to do, like hobbies. They used to, enjoy engaging in um, playing sports, and now maybe they're not doing that anymore, or going out with their friends. They don't have those same kind of interests, or they're engaging in riskier behaviors. Then you're catching them. They might start engaging in things like vaping, or using substances, things of that nature. um, they're giving away their belongings, their personal belongings, their prized possessions, things they value. That can be another sign. There can be a sudden calm after distress, right? And that can be another red flag or warning sign. But what's key here is trust your instinct on this.
Mhm.
you know Trust that, if you see something is off, that you can be comfortable in having this conversation with your child.
And that is so true about trusting your instincts and knowing, because sometimes the signs, you feel they're not there. And I think another way to look at it too is just know your child. Watch,
Mm.
listen. Is something different about them? And if it's just, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. If that is your thought that something's going on, ask. Um, is it okay? I'll ask you, is it okay to ask your child if they're thinking about harming themselves or considering suicide?
Yes, yes, it is definitely okay. Asking about suicide, or asking where that person is in that moment, related to suicide, can actually save their life.
Hmm.
Because they're sitting in that place, and sometimes they're just wishing someone could recognize or notice, and they can someone could ask them that question, and so they can just release and get it off their chest. So you can use a clear, compassionate language. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Do you feel like you don't want to be here anymore? Because some people struggle with using the word killing, right?
Or the word suicide.
Or the word suicide. They struggle with it. But the most important thing is to get it out and open that door, so that they can be honest with you, that trust can continue to grow, and you're taking that action. And so that's key.
It's so true. And we have to get over the fear of asking. I've heard parents say, well, if I ask about that, I'll plant the seed. No, if it's already there, it's there. Asking is not going to increase the likelihood. Well, I gave them the idea by asking. No, if you had to ask, the idea was likely there. And even if a child says, no, I'm good, you don't have to accept that. If you, as a parent, if you feel like something's going on, watch, listen, look at their social media, talk to their friends, have their friends changed, and just be vigilant without hovering, because that hovering could really push them away. You had a reaction to that hovering. Talk about it.
No, I get that. I get that. You want to, check in with them, um, as much as you can regularly, but you don't want to only check in when there's a crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, grow with your child by, because I've seen parents where, they get off from work, they have a long day, they got so much going on, they can't just stop and have these conversations. And it creates that wedge there. And
Mm-hmm.
so now you can't continue to build that connection that's so needed when it comes to something like suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and give yourself grace throughout this process.
Yes.
Oh, you have to give yourself grace, and you have to show up with empathy. You have to be willing to say, "Oh, I can put myself in this person's shoes," because we all have been there. There's no perfect person, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you have to start speaking to this. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect, but I'm here and I'm available, and I want to know more. I'm curious, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and just know that you're not alone in this. Many people go through this. So
And if you really feel that there's just something going on, get help, get outside help. Not saying it just because I'm a therapist, but get outside help. And you can't force a person to go to therapy and they work if they're really not ready. Maybe you as a parent though might need to be the one to say, I'm going to go to therapy so I can figure out how to help my child as a parent. I mean, let's think out of the box. So, I mean, those are just some other possibilities. I wanted to, in the few minutes we have remaining, talk about teens and trauma. Um, we live in a traumatic society in a sense right now.
mhm.
More and more teens are not just with suicide, there's gun violence that it's impacting our teens, which can lead to them feeling helpless and hopeless and suicidal. What can you say to the audience just about how the trauma that children and youth are experiencing that they see just being in America right now?
So the trauma that our young kids are sitting in is real. It's real for them. They don't really know how to navigate it. They have access to so much information, but is it the right information? Is it
Mhm.
um, helpful information? And so they're connecting, on all these sites. They're trying to find ways to understand and navigate this world that we're in. And times have changed so much that they really don't know how to do it. And it starts with, okay, they can't just be babysitted by their devices, right? You have to make time to separate them away from their devices. We have to get in a space where we're going back to, eating together, taking that time to sit at the table with no devices.
Mhm.
Because just sitting in spaces and not having a significant person that you feel you could turn to. How many kids I've heard say, well, I don't have a significant person. Or I don't feel like I could talk to my parent at all. We don't want that because that within itself can be traumatic if you
Mhm.
feel you have nowhere to go, or nowhere to turn to. And so when I think about the world that we're living in right now, we all have to step away, adults included, and take that time, because what we're seeing out there, like just the news, like I know me, I have to separate myself from it,
Mhm. Me too.
everybody back together in my household, and I have to say, let's have these conversations. I was surprised when one of my own kids said, Mom, I think we're getting into a place where people are going to start killing people. And when he said that, as an 18-year-old, say, with everything I'm seeing, you think we're going to be all right? That's how my son was talking. And I said, oh, we need
Mhm.
to have this deep conversation of how we're going to navigate through these times. And so sitting there, because he brought it to me because we have an open conversation. We have open
Mhm.
conversations all the time, but some people don't.
And that is an important thing for parents to be able to have open conversations. And it's generally more uncomfortable for the parent than it is the child.
Hmm.
We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about, oh, what if somebody did this and that? Well, it's real. Um, and not talking about it doesn't make it go away. So yes, having those difficult conversations. Often teens feel stuck and they suffer in silence because they don't know how to get out of that. What can you say to that? Helping them get out of, they've seen this trauma. They can suffer what we call secondary trauma, meaning I saw someone get hurt, I saw someone get killed, I'm in an environment at school where a lot is happening, and I see violence. I turn on the news, and even as a child, I see it. What can we do? And they get stuck emotionally. What can you say? Speak to that.
So again, doing those check-ins and building that trust over time is important. But letting them know or providing them with reassurance that the struggles that they're facing, it doesn't necessarily define them, and that we can navigate this through, even like setting goals around this, like if you're accessing things too much, that setting boundaries, sometimes we have to turn off these things,
Mm-hmm.
or because they can become overly obsessed with some of these things. I'm going to say it like that. And we have to encourage them to know that healing is possible in the midst of the things that we're seeing in the world, and we're hearing in the world, and we have to create our own narrative and our own story. And if we have to do something different, something we've never done before to get unstuck, then that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to do it together. We have to grow together in that. And you have to let them know, like, even as a parent, I may not have all the answers, but I'm open to learning. I'm open to growing. You have to let them know too that, that you're not perfect. And some
Mm-hmm.
things you may not know how to navigate right then and there, but you're glad that they brought that to you. They're bringing you this awareness, and you're able to now come up with your own plan on how we can solve these problems together.
And that last word is key, together. If you're the parent, and I will say this, maybe you're not a parent, but there's a teen in your life or
Mhm.
even a younger person. Be aware if they're in your life and you notice differences. Maybe you can talk to the parent and say, hey, I've noticed this. I've over the years have had kids in my life who were estranged from their parent, and they would come and stay at my house for long periods of time,
Mhm.
and be able to be there and walk them through it. So whether you're the parent or not, be able to be sensitive to the needs, because it is real. I've heard, oh, black people don't commit suicide. They also hear black people don't go to therapy. Black people don't do this. We have all these ideas and they're false. We do. And as we stated at the top of the hour, suicide in African American teens is on the rise. It is still rising. It leveled off a little bit. We still are at a higher rate than everyone else. And society puts so much against us. So we really have to do that.
Mhm.
As we end tonight, I would like to invite everyone who's in the Arlington area, or anyone who wants to travel to the Arlington area, on September 27th. I'm hosting a silent summit. What is that? Well, go to my website. It's right here, blucaslpcs.com, and find out. I'd love to have you there. It's a time for you as an adult to stop and turn the world off for a couple of hours. No electronics, out in nature. Sounds crazy, but it's great. Krystal, is there one final comment you'd like to make?
I'll say it again, and give yourself grace, and you're not alone. You're not alone in this, and you can do it. You can do it.
Awesome. Thank you. I am Miss B, the Black Couch Therapist. I am here to help you become a better you, and I will see you next week.